And that's just a very basic human economic principle that's not going to change. Sales are still sales. So that's not a complex concept at all. We can just be a little bit more clever and a little bit more nice, in fact, in the way that we offer our consumers the kinds of products and the kinds of services that they are hopefully looking for at that time. So this is my preachy thing, that I think location's always relevant. It always has been relevant. If you think of a corner store 150 years ago, the location of that corner was important to reach the kind of people and to offer them the kind of products that they're going to need, the coffee on the way to work, or the newspaper on the way to work, or on Saturday morning, or whatever. Location's always been relevant, and it always will be. And I think it's important to not think, I have to choose one of these technologies, but to see how am I going to accompany my customer, my user, from the moment before I actually know who they are, right through to hopefully a very one-to-one and personal communication. And you're going to need more than one technology for that. So let's have a little look at different types of technologies that are available to us all as location technologies. The first one isn't really a technology as such, which is why I've used this lovely farmer picture. Basically, user-supplied information. It's ubiquitous everywhere. If you have a public email service, for example, and people need to register and give their permission for that registration information to be used by third parties, or they can choose their location from a drop-down list and you can save it into a cookie. This is, of course, user permission, but it's very, very widespread. The problem with it is that, firstly, I mean, if you asked me today, for example, if I went into a news website and it said, we'd like to show you local whatever, please give us your location and postcode. Now, I know I'm in Stockholm, but I've got no idea what the postcode is here, right? So I might just put, if it's a field that I have to enter, I'll just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, and it's rubbish information. So it's not always clear that the user will know exactly what you're wanting from them. And also I might be entering my registration information from my home in London, which is of course not relevant to where I am right here. And then when I'm travelling another time, it's not much point targeting me to London, depending on what you're trying to offer me. Or I might think, why should I give this company this information? What's in it for me? They're just going to market stuff to me. And I think there are quite a lot of people who are a little bit concerned about that kind of thing, so they might actually deliberately put a wrong location in, or they may be even looking for, if I'm travelling to Hamburg tomorrow, I'm more interested what the weather's like in Hamburg, I'll be searching for a restaurant in Hamburg that's giving false information back as to, you know, what I'm actually interested in a longer term, or for today. So you can get very good reach with this kind of information. There's, it's, like I say, web email, operators, people like that have incredibly great reach, and it looks like you can target wonderfully and very, very personalized on this kind of information, but the accuracy tends to suffer. The second one is what we're expert in, which is the IP address. The IP address is the connection point to the public internet, so it's not a private thing, it's a node, probably 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 streets away from where one is. It's a fixed connection, so the IP address can't really be used to locate a cell tower mobile connection with any reliability. As long as it can't be traced back to an individual, in many countries in Europe, then it's there's strict data privacy rules about IP addresses being private information if you can trace it back to a person. But if you treat the IP address as a lookup, have a look where the location is and don't save it in any user profile, then there aren't any privacy considerations there. So the user can remain completely anonymous, and you can still tailor what you're showing them or what you're targeting to them in a very personalized way. There aren't any latency problems. It's generally, these technologies work by a database that gets downloaded, hosted locally, and real-time lookups are then possible. So there's no real-time lag there. You can have pretty big reach, but the granularity is limited, of course, because, as I say, it's a public connection. The user hasn't given their permission. You're not looking at the device. You're not looking at the person. You're just looking at some public node, ISP node, somewhere near to where the user is. So with our technology, the reach is around about 5 to 8 kilometers of where a person is physically located, or around about a postal code sector. The next technology would be cell tower triangulation, which where you are calculating where a mobile user is based on the cell towers that their device is connecting to, and in some cases combining that with mobile phone number. The technology depends on how many and the quality of strategic partnerships that the provider has got with the telecoms providers. So it can vary, like from country to country and from operator to operator. But when it works, it's very granular. You can target or locate the device between 1 and 500 meters, which is a very nice and very granular targeting capability. It can be slow, however. Obviously, you need user permission to be able to use their device tracking facilities. Wi-Fi triangulation is another one, when the user's connected on their mobile phone through a Wi-Fi in a cafe or so. The way this works is using a technique called war driving, where I'll sit in a car and drive around Stockholm and try to connect to all the public Wi-Fis as I go by, and that goes into a system. And it needs, however, to be continually updated all the time in order to keep the data integrity, because, of course, you probably can imagine Wi-Fi's, public Wi-Fi's are being created and changing all the time, and so the quality of this service will depend on how regular the provider is updating in that particular area. It's very useful in, I'll come to GPS technologies in just a second, but in densely populated cities where you have a lot of high buildings, this is a very useful technology because you're not needing a direct a visible link to a satellite. So it's an on-the-ground technology. So that can be very useful. The precision is very, very fine, granular down to 1 to 200 meters. You don't often get results right away, however, so it's more of a thing where you must be careful not to need a super fast result. And obviously, again, you're going to need user opt-in order to be able to do that technology. So GPS coordinates sound pretty cool. I mean, we've got all these satellites circling around the world. It's extremely precise. You can locate the device really very, very finely indeed. The problem is the device will need a clear line of sight or a clear, undisturbed line of vision to 4 or more satellites. That's the information, the latest information I've got. I don't know how it's developing, but that's quite a few. And if you imagine if you're in a big city like London or New York or somewhere, there are a lot of big buildings that are going to be making that impossible. And the problem is that, of course, locating somebody between 1 and 2 meters is going to be most useful within a big city. So there's a sort of a catch-22 problem. So in the inner city, that's why many providers will be offering a combination of the cell tower triangulation I mentioned, Wi-Fi triangulation, and this technology, depending on what's available at any given time. Again, you need user opt-in, and they also need a phone where GPS is activated. And latency can be a challenge, so you're going to have people waiting for a result. One other thing that my technical colleagues mentioned to me, is that this can be manipulated. I'm not quite sure how, but that means that for payment transactions, GPS technology is not a very wise choice. Then we come to even more granular or even more specific, which is indoor positioning systems, so inside a building. So here we have our old-fashioned chap showing us some champagne. So instead of him, we could have an IPS offering us a special on a particular bottle when we get close to the aisle. There's a real extreme. The way it works is that you have particular strategically placed proximity access points within the building, and when you approach those access points, your device will receive a push notification, which will, show you a special or whatever the communication is going to be. So under this sort of category falls iBeacons, which I believe there's going to be a presentation later. Bluetooth low energy, Bluetooth smart stuff, and near field, communication and payment systems, that kind of thing. So it can be 200 meters away, or right down to a point of sale here where I actually pay with my contactless technology at a point of sale. So there's all sorts of interesting and fascinating and really exciting stuff you can do with this technology, because